Okay, so are you ready to dive into some seriously cool science today? I mean, look at this research from Stanford about a potential new type of vaccine. You rub it on your skin
Wow.
instead of getting a shot.
No needles necessary.
Yeah, no needles, no problem. But like, how does this even work?
Right.
This article mentions using some kind of common skin bacteria.
Yeah, it's called Staphylococcus epidermidis, and actually it's usually pretty harmless, and most of us just have it living on our skin right now.
So they're basically like using a bug that's already hanging out on us to like deliver a vaccine. That's kind of wild.
It is pretty wild. What's fascinating is that our bodies are constantly fighting off this bacteria. We have so many antibodies against it already.
It's like target practice for our immune system.
Yeah, exactly. And so the Stanford team figured out how to actually use that to our advantage.
Okay, so how did they pull this off?
So they took this protein from S. epidermidis called APE, and you can kind of think of it like a little hook sticking out from the bacteria.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And so then they took harmless pieces of tetanus and diphtheria toxins, and they attached them to this hook.
Like a wanted poster.
Exactly, like sticking a wanted poster on this hook for our immune system to see.
I love that analogy. So then when our immune system like sees that wanted poster, it learns to recognize and attack the toxins.
That's the idea, and the results are amazing. They tested this on mice, and it protected them from like lethal doses of those toxins.
Wow, so no beetles, and it might even work better. This could be huge.
Yeah, it's still early, but, if this works in humans, this could, like, revolutionize how we vaccinate against all sorts of things.
It makes you wonder, like, what else could we use this for? Could we, like, rub on a vaccine for the flu or even HIV?
I mean, those are the questions researchers are exploring now, right? The potential is huge, but there are definitely challenges, too.
Like, what kind of hurdles do they need to clear before this becomes, like, a reality?
Well, for one thing, they've only tested this in mice. So far, the next step is to see if it works in monkeys and then eventually in humans, right?
Right. So, cautiously optimistic, I like it.
Exactly.
But even if it works in humans, wouldn't it be hard to, like, produce these topical vaccines on a large scale?
Yeah, that's another challenge. They have to figure out how to manufacture and distribute like a cream or a lotion that's stable and effective. It's a whole different ballgame than making traditional vaccines.
Okay, so there's a lot more research and development needed, but let's say they do crack the code on these challenges, like, what could this mean for the future of vaccination?
I mean, just imagine a world where getting vaccinated is as easy as putting on lotion.
Right.
No more needles, no more fear of injections. It could dramatically increase vaccination rates, especially in places where access to healthcare is limited.
And we've talked about the potential for, like, tackling diseases like the flu or HIV, but what about other threats? Could this method work for bacterial or parasitic infections too?
That's what researchers are trying to figure out, right? Like, the key is, can we identify those right wanted posters, those key pieces of the bacteria or parasite that our immune system needs to learn to fight off?
Okay, so this topical vaccine idea, it's all about finding those specific targets and figuring out how to attach them to that APE protein.
Exactly, and the fact that they were able to do it with tetanus and diphtheria toxins is really promising. It suggests this approach could work for a whole range of diseases.
It's mind-blowing to think about the possibilities, but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's dive a little deeper into how this APE protein actually works. I'm still kind of curious about that whole wanted poster analogy.
Sure. So you see, our skin isn't just a barrier. It's like a complex ecosystem with its own security force. And these security guards are called Langerhans cells. And think of Langerhans cells like little security guards patrolling your skin. They're constantly on the lookout, anything suspicious.
Like a cut or a scratch.
Exactly. Or in this case, our engineered bacteria.
Okay, so these Langerhans cells are the ones that spot that APE protein with the wanted poster attached.
Right. So what happens next? So they grab a sample and they rush it off to the lymph nodes, which are like the headquarters for your immune system.
Oh, so they're like sounding the alarm.
Exactly. They're saying, hey, we got a potential threat over here.
I like it.
And in the lymph nodes, they show this wanted poster to other immune cells, like the T cells and B cells.
And those are the cells that like create the antibodies that actually fight off the disease, right?
You got it. The B cells are like the weapons factories of your immune system. They pump out antibodies specifically designed to target whatever is on that wanted poster.
Okay, this is all starting to click now.
Good.
But the article mentioned two types of antibodies, IgG and IgA.
Yes.
What's the difference?
Okay, so think of IgG as like the all-around defenders. They circulate in your blood, ready to tackle anything they recognize as a threat.
Okay, so they're like the general patrol.
Right, exactly. What about IgA?
What about them?
Those are more like specialized border guards. They hang out in places like your nose, your lungs, even your gut. Basically, all those entry points where germs try to sneak in.
Oh, so they're like the first line of defense.
Exactly. And the really cool thing about this topical vaccine is that it seems to trigger both types of antibodies.
So it's giving you like a general defense system and specialized border control.
Yeah, like double the protection, and that's especially important for things like respiratory viruses. You want those IgA antibodies right there in your nose and lungs, ready to stop the virus before it even takes hold.
Yeah, it's like stopping a burglar before they even break into the house.
Precisely. But of course, there's still so much we need to figure out. We need to see if this works as well in humans as it does in mice.
Right. And even if it does, what about all those potential challenges we talked about before, like figuring out how to produce this on a large scale, making sure it's safe?
Right. Those are all valid concerns. We don't want to mess up the natural balance of bacteria on our skin.
Yeah, I've heard about how important the skin microbiome is for overall health.
Exactly. And so researchers are looking into ways to engineer the bacteria so they don't spread easily or disrupt that delicate balance.
Okay, so there are definitely some hurdles to overcome, but let's say they do figure it all out, like what could the world look like with topical vaccines?
I mean, a world full of possibilities. Imagine a kid in a remote village in Africa being protected from measles with just a single skin cream, or think about someone with a fear of needles finally getting vaccinated against the flu without any anxiety.
It could really level the playing field when it comes to global health.
Absolutely. And beyond those immediate benefits, it could also open up entirely new avenues for vaccine development.
Oh, like what?
Well, we've mainly been talking about viruses and bacteria, but what about things like fungal infections or even parasites? This technology could potentially be adapted to target all sorts of threats.
So this might just be the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. There's so much potential, it's hard to even fathom where it could all lead.
Speaking of potential, the article mentioned something that really caught my eye. Apparently, they tested a different method where they just attached the toxin pieces to the bacteria chemically without any fancy genetic engineering.
Oh yeah, that was a surprising finding. And you know what? It actually worked even better?
Wait, seriously, so the simpler approach was more effective?
It goes to show that sometimes the most elegant solutions are the simplest ones.
That's incredible, but before we get too carried away, let's take a step back. Even with all this potential, we have to consider the bigger picture. There's a lot at stake here.
Absolutely. We're talking about potentially manipulating our own microbiome, and that comes with responsibilities.
What kind of responsibilities?
I mean, we need to make sure this technology is used safely and ethically. We need to think about the potential for unintended consequences for both individuals and the environment.
Yeah, you're right. We can't just rush headlong into this without considering the risks.
And we need to make sure this technology is accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford it. This has to be a tool for global health equity.
These are all really important points. It sounds like there's a lot more to this story than just the science.
There's always more to the story, but I think we've covered a lot of ground in this part of the dive. Are you ready to move on to the final part and explore some of those broader implications?
Absolutely. This has been fascinating, and I can't wait to see what else we uncover. Okay, so we've explored all the science behind these topical vaccines, talked about some of the hurdles, but let's really let our imaginations run wild here for a minute. What could this technology mean for the future of vaccines and global health in general?
It is pretty mind-boggling when you consider the possibilities. Imagine a world where getting vaccinated is as simple and painless as putting on lotion. It would completely transform how we approach preventing diseases.
Yeah, and we talked about the potential for easier access, especially in parts of the world where traditional vaccines are difficult to get.
Right.
No more struggles with refrigeration or finding trained people to give the injections.
Exactly. That's one of the most exciting things about this whole discovery. It could increase vaccination rates globally, particularly for diseases that disproportionately affect developing countries.
It's almost hard to grasp the potential impact. We could be looking at a future where diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries are finally eradicated, all because of this simple but revolutionary approach.
It really shows you the power of scientific innovation and the importance of investing in research. Who would have thought that a common bacteria found on our skin could be the key to such a huge medical advancement?
It's a great reminder that breakthroughs can come from the most unexpected places.
Definitely.
But with all this potential, we also have to be careful. We talked about some ethical considerations earlier. And I think it's important to really think about those.
Oh, absolutely. As with any powerful new technology, there's a responsibility to use it wisely and ethically. We need to make sure that this doesn't become a tool for exacerbating existing inequalities.
Right. We have to make sure these topical vaccines are affordable and accessible to everyone, not just a select few.
Exactly. Global health equity needs to be like at the forefront as we develop and deploy this technology. We can't let it become another example of the haves benefiting at the expense of the have-nots.
And what about like unintended consequences? We're talking about manipulating the human microbiome, which is still a relatively new area of study.
Right.
Like, could there be unforeseen risks that we haven't even thought of yet?
That's a really crucial point. While we have a decent understanding of S. epidermidis, the microbiome is super complex and interconnected. Altering one part of it could have ripple effects that we don't fully understand yet.
So rigorous safety testing and long-term monitoring will be essential before we use this on a large scale.
Absolutely. We need to be cautious and humble, recognizing that we don't have all the answers. And it's also super important to be open and transparent with the public, address concerns, and foster trust.
Transparency and public engagement are key. We can't just spring this on people without explaining the science and addressing anxieties. This is powerful technology, and with that comes a responsibility to use it ethically and thoughtfully.
Couldn't agree more. We also need to consider the broader societal implications. How might this impact the pharmaceutical industry, for example?
That's a really good question. The development of topical vaccines could disrupt existing markets and create new opportunities. It's important to anticipate these shifts and manage them in a way that benefits everyone.
It's a chance to rethink how we develop and distribute vaccines, potentially leading to more equitable and sustainable models. This could be a catalyst for some really positive change, but it will require careful planning and collaboration.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this incredible new technology, what's the one key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the main message is one of cautious optimism. This discovery has the potential to revolutionize global health, but we need to proceed carefully, address the potential challenges while embracing the transformative possibilities.
It's a good reminder that science is a journey, not a destination. As we go into this new frontier of microbiome manipulation, we have to navigate with wisdom and foresight and a commitment to ethical principles.
Well said. It's an exciting time to be alive, and I'm really eager to see where this journey takes us.
It really is a testament to human ingenuity and the potential of scientific discovery. And as always, we'll be here to keep you informed as this story develops. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, 67 million.